This is Bertie Newcomb talking about the 2009 Summer of Love project in Second Life. At one point, and starting over from scratch, I decided to use the possibilities that Second Life affords to investigate the hinges of history. I mean, those brief periods where something indefinable changed or shifted to enable a whole new orientation. The French Revolution, cave painting, Marxism, Columbus. I settled on the Summer of Love as close enough to have plenty of material to work with. I'd seen it from afar and felt the effects of it, but what actually happened? I called it reverse archeology, and the idea was to enlist students in recreating the year 1967, building San Francisco's Haight-Ashbury neighborhood. Right next to Golden Gate Park, and digging into the events and histories, music, movies, books, and news of 1967 was a total learning experience. From May to July, we'd prepared the groundwork, setting up the streets and some buildings. Then we'd have some students come in August and fill in the details, role-playing, reporting, learning history as they recreated it. I set myself the task of producing the Second Francisco Oracle, emulating the famous San Francisco Oracle alternative newspaper, which purported to report the future as well as the present. My task? Every week I would publish on a wiki the events of 10 weeks from 1966 and 1967 and post it in white pillars on the site. Here's a synopsis of February 1967, and then we add photos such as Martin Luther King denouncing the Vietnam War and the BN in Golden Gate Park, which were February events. At the same time, violence was in the air. Russia and China were mobilizing army troops against each other. As the summer came, so did riots in Detroit and Watts. Robert McNamara was picked as Man of the Year by Time magazine at the same time that protest marches against the Vietnam War grew larger, with Dr. Spock joining Martin Luther King and thousands of others. Ken Kesey's bus Further, a traveling acid trip, came to town. You were either on the bus or you were not. The Diggers opened their free store in Haight-Ashbury with a shot of Digger reunion 40 years later. Janis Joplin moved to town from Texas. That Haight-Ashbury had been a fashionable neighborhood, but it was run down and the rents were cheap for artists and musicians. Charles Manson lived in the blue house near the Grateful Dead commune. You can see the enormous blow-up of the Golden Gate Bridge in a couple of these shots. An actual fireman contributed a firehouse, somewhat anachronistic, and the golden hydrant that saved hundreds of lives by functioning all the way through the San Francisco earthquake. Let's take a stroll down Page Street past the music box with a cute rotating carousel on top. We'll pop in for a peek at the CDs, which is also anachronistic, with live links. Next door, across the street from the Second Francisco Oracle office, is the Bookery, where poetry readings took place. And you can see the latest titles from 1967 with actual links to Amazon, such as Catherine Marshall's Christie, Conan the Barbarian series, Stanyan Street and Other Sorrows from Leonard Cohen. Past the Bookery was the Movie House, advertising all the latest films of 1967, such as Planet of the Apes and Belle de Jour. We didn't show full-length features. We also built the Glide Memorial Church, where Pastor Williams had taken down the cross and opened the church to give shelter and food to anyone, including a growing number of hippies who had heard about the hate and the Summer of Love. Our cable car, unfortunately, never actually ran. Now we go down toward the industrial end of town. Here's a sidewalk poster shop A little further down is where Chet Helms and the Family Dogs started giving impromptu dance and music concerts for free or for donations. Plenty of musicians were happy to get exposure. Helms would pick a warehouse or any large space. Other free concerts occurred on a stage on Hippie Hill, which is part of Golden Gate Park, on the Haight neighborhood.
Well, we're really having fun now.
Bill Graham, who learned from Helms that there was an audience for this new music, set up concerts in larger venues, made the Fillmore Auditorium famous and himself rich. He propelled the careers of the Grateful Dead and many other psychedelic bands. The Vault on the internet continues to provide free footage of most of Graham's productions.
And the children call
The big events in the Haight were music. For our site, I put together a YouTube historical footage, enough of it to stage week-long concerts of the Monterey Pop Festival, which was actually not in San Francisco, with Ravi Shankar, and where Jimi Hendrix famously set his guitar on fire on stage. And we had another week of Fillmore concerts. So, what did I learn? We had visitors and I had a lot of helpers, but no paying students signed up. We went ahead anyway. I learned and vaguely remembered that these changes were born in an unquiet time, while the first computers made with vacuum tubes were being built and rockets were going to the moon. Anything seemed possible in a place where you could live for free and do anything. Second Life for me has been liberating in a calmer way, and I don't think we'll understand how profoundly yet, almost imperceptibly, our lives change.